Hey, and welcome to the next section of this listening course. Now that we have understood and learned more about some different prosody aspects regarding stress, reductions, intonation patterns in American English, now we are going to go on to another aspect that is really important for our listening skills because it changes the way that we speak in a natural and effortless way. So by understanding the different or most common components of connected speech, it will help you to perceive your listening skills in a different way and hear English in a different sort of perception, right? Our perception of what we are expecting to hear is a really key factor when it comes to our listening skills. If we expect to hear things word for word with separation, it would sound very different and it would sound strange to our ears, right? So when we are thinking about connected speech and we understand and we expect for words to sound like they flow and connect together in a certain way, then it makes more sense when we are listening to it. So a big aspect of connected speech, if you learn more about it on your own, is often the reduction aspect using the schwa. So that's something we've already covered and talked about when we talked about stress patterns and the schwa in English. So those were examples like, instead of saying got to, gotta, going to, gonna, want to, wanna. So that is normally considered an aspect of connected speech as well. Here, I'm going to break it down differently, and we're going to talk about 3 different categories of connected speech to listen and look out for. Now, I would like you to, when you're watching this video, compare how I pronounce things in a connected speech way with what sounds and feels most natural for you, and take note when we're going through the different rules of what sounds most challenging so you know what to practice more in your listening. Some things may feel very, very easy for you, and others may feel like more of a challenge. So make sure you are identifying those challenges as we go through. Don't worry about focusing or knowing all of the rules as we go through them, but just focus on being able to take it all in, identify your challenges, and you have this video to come back and watch later about the sections that were tricky for you over and over and over if you want. Okay, so for right now, just take it all in and don't worry if it seems like a lot. We aren't going to go through every single rule of connected speech, but some of the more general or important ones that I think are good to highlight for your listening skills improvement. Okay? So what we're going to talk about in this lesson, we are going to define what is connected speech so that we feel comfortable with that term, common listening challenges that come up with connected speech for Spanish speakers, and the 3 main connected speech transitions. All right, so I'll break this down into 3 categories, as I said before, and I'll give you some guidelines to practice with connected speech at the end. So what is connected speech? The technical definition or term is a continuous sequence of sounds forming utterances or conversations in spoken language. So this is where we have continuous sounds. So instead of breaking up different sounds into little tiny units, it sounds like it all flows together, okay? It's connected, it flows. So some listening challenges that tend to come up. The first and biggest one is when we try to understand every single word. So if you are doing a listening activity for preparing for a test, or you're listening to a movie or a song, if you try to listen to every single word individually, that's going to throw you off because with connected speech, we don't put pauses or separation in between individual words. They are going to sound like they link and flow together. So trying to understand every single word is not going to help you in your listening practice. Expecting things to sound how they are spelled. So this is another listening challenge that comes with connected speech. Sometimes when we have different combinations of consonant or vowel sounds between different words, we actually change the sounds that we make when we connect those words together so that it feels and sounds more natural. In English, really all we're doing is trying to make things feel as easy as possible. And for us, it feels very easy. We grew up speaking it. But if you are not comfortable with speaking the language yourself yet, then you may be expecting to hear and perceive things in a different way. So just know that we can never expect things to sound how they are spelled. In Spanish, it's very easy to know how something is pronounced by looking at it written down, but it's not going to be the same way in English. So don't have that expectation. Otherwise, it will throw you off and hold you back in your listening practice. The final one is the belief that people just speak too fast. Okay, and this often comes from using reductions in a way that we can say more words, but still in the same amount of time. We saw examples of that in the Schwa video in part 2 of prosody of this course. So the belief that people just speak too fast is a hindering or a limiting belief that we often have when it comes to listening. So if you have this belief already, it's important for you to change the way you think about your listening skills and just know that people are speaking in a natural way. And it's not that they're speaking too fast. They're just using sounds in a different way than you are maybe used to or accustomed to. And that's fine because you will get used to it with more practice. You'll get better. It'll feel easier. Okay. And if you have ever spoken to an American that is learning Spanish, then you will have heard from them probably that, oh, in Spanish, they just speak too fast. They just go, and they don't stop. Because that is the perception that we have of Spanish speakers when we don't understand the combination and the connection of different sounds when people are speaking in Spanish. So it's that same thing that we feel when we are learning the Spanish language. So this belief just isn't true. It's just that we are perceiving sounds in a different way. So being aware of these challenges before you start doing listening exercises or before you start learning more about connected speech is a great way to prepare yourself mentally to perceive language in another way. All right. So in this video, I'm breaking down the connected speech transitions into 3 main categories for you. Now, I'm defining these in terms of consonants and vowels. If you don't feel comfortable with those terms, don't worry. I'm going to give examples on the next slide. So the first example we're going to see of the first transition is when a word ends in a consonant sound and the next word starts with a vowel sound. We're always talking about sounds when we're talking about connected speech, because sometimes we have words that may end in a letter, but we don't hear the letter. Okay, so for example, in the word house, house, the last sound that we hear in that word is an S sound, house, but we spell it with an E at the end. So as I said just before, in listening challenges, we don't speak the same way that we spell words. So we need to listen for the last sound of the word, not the last letter that is written. Okay, that'll be important for this practice. The second transition we'll talk about is vowel to vowel transition. So that is when a word ends in a vowel sound and the next word starts with a vowel sound. And then we'll talk about different consonant to consonant transitions where a word ends in a consonant sound and the following word starts with a consonant sound. We'll see examples of all of these, okay? So for consonants versus vowels, if you don't feel very comfortable yet with this terminology, that's okay. That's not something that we normally talk about when we're learning another language. So vowels are represented by the letters when we spell them, A, E, I, O, U, or sometimes Y as well. We won't complicate this too much because it's not too important for you to understand the complexities of vowel sounds for your listening skills, not right now, at least. So we won't go more into that, but these are the letters you can look out for that will normally represent vowel sounds. Consonants are represented by all other letters. So B, C, D, F, G, H, K, J, L, Z. So all of those are consonants. So that's what we're looking out for. And the vowels, the letters that we use to write vowels, are the same in Spanish, las vocales, no? So we might have different combinations of them that create different sounds. In general, we have fewer vowel sounds in Spanish than in English. English has a greater variety, okay? So those are consonants versus vowels when I talk about them. Now, the first transition we're going to see, consonant to vowel. In this transition, the final consonant is actually going to sound like it moves to the beginning of the following word. And this rule is actually something that we do in Spanish as well, okay? It's just maybe something you're not aware of or that feels much simpler because you've done it your entire life. So here in the first example, I need it. I need it. When we have this final letter ends in a consonant, the next is a vowel sound. So it really sounds like I need it. I need it. I need it. I need it. And it sounds like this D and it get stuck together. Okay? So we don't hear I need it, but I need it. I need it. Or this afternoon, where we end in an S consonant sound, and the next sound is a vowel, ah. This afternoon, this afternoon, this afternoon. I need it this afternoon. I need it this afternoon. So practice these with me as we go through, because practice is what's going to help these feel and sound more natural to you. I need it this afternoon. I need it this afternoon. Good, great job. Let's try a couple of more. He woke up. We'll slow it down. He woke up. He woke up. He woke up. He woke up. She reached out. 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 I really want you to think about this and how sounds and consonants sound like they get stuck to the next word, to always create syllables or units, tiny units of speech that start with consonant sounds. We do the same thing in Spanish, okay? We don't hear each individual word as a separate unit, but everything flows together. So this is something you're already doing, but it is revolutionary, or at least it was for me when I learned Spanish, to know that, hey, I do this in my native language and I can also apply it to my non-native language. All right, so pay special attention to this as Spanish speakers. Now, for the second type of transition we'll talk about, vowel to vowel. So in these examples, we need to add an interjecting sound, which means an additional sound, in between the vowels so that we can connect them in an easier way. Okay, the first example where we are going to use this vowel to vowel transition is when we have a word that ends in an E or I sound, and the next word also starts with a vowel sound. In these cases, we need to add a y sound in between to make the transition between the vowels easier. Don't worry right now about being able to produce these sounds yourself. That's okay. Just know that when you are listening to other people, you aren't going to hear these words separated with pauses in between, but rather connected by another sound, okay? So right now, this is all about listening perception. And the better your listening perception is in these cases, the easier it will be for you to produce these sounds on your own later down the road when you're practicing more your speaking skills. Okay? So with this E or I sound at the end, we'll add a Y before another vowel. So for this first example, yes, we are, we're going to hear the we and are combined with a y coming from the back of the throat. Y. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Or in she answered, we hear no pause there. It's not she answered, but rather she answered. She answered. He asked her out. Not he asked, but he asked. He asked. He asked her out. Okay, so be aware that when you hear these words being smushed together or connected, it's because we put that little y sound in between. So be aware of that when you are listening to others speak. And we have a second example of vowel sounds that have an interjecting sound help us with the pronunciation of connected speech. So for this one, when we end a word in an oo or ow sound, and then the next sound is a vowel, we add a W in the middle, in between those two sounds. So a w. For example, just do it, do it. We don't hear pause, but rather do it, do it. Just do it, just do it. Go out the back is go out, go out. Go out the back, go out the back. You already know, you already know will not have a pause. It'll sound like you already, you already, you already know, you already know. So in that case, we need to look out for interjecting sounds that will help connect those words together. So be aware of that when you are listening to others speak. Now, let's talk about some consonant to consonant transitions. There are quite a few rules for this one, and I have put just the most important ones, I think, that maybe you are not anticipating normally when you listen to consonant sounds. So just take note of which ones sound the strangest to you or the most difficult for you to hear, and you'll know which ones to practice listening for later on. As a general rule for consonants, what we're going to do is connect them together. Just like we've been doing for other aspects of connected speech, instead of making a pause or stopping in between words, we're going to connect them together, okay? As a general rule. This means that we're connecting the end of one word and the beginning of the next with no space in between. So for some different consonants, if we have consonants that are different, so for example, this first word ends in a l or ol sound, the next one also another consonant sound, and instead of saying general rule, it sounds like general rule, general rule. It sounds like it's all one word. Or move that, move that. Recognize that here we don't pronounce the E. This vowel is not pronounced. So we are actually ending in a consonant sound. Move that, move that, move that, move that. And when you practice with me, try to make sure you just don't take any pause. Go straight from the V to the th sound. Move that, move that. Please go, please go, please go. Not please go, please go, please go, please go. Now, when we have the same consonant, this one is easier because we can pronounce the consonant only once, okay? So we get to just take out a sound and make it easier to say. For example, if we have in milk cart, we have the k at the end and the k at the beginning of the next word. So instead of saying milk cart, I can just pronounce the k sound once and push it all together. Milk cart, milk cart, milk cart. Pet tiger sounds like pet tiger, pet tiger, pet tiger. For real or for real sounds like for real, for real. Are you for real? Are you for real? So we just hold out that consonant sound just once. We don't have to say it twice, which makes it easier for pronunciation. Next, another rule that we have for different stopped sounds. So the stopped sounds are ones where we have to push out air to make the sound, and you'll feel like a puff of air come out of your mouth when you make these sounds. So some examples, you can put your hand outside or just in front of your face when you make these and try to feel on your palm, just a little bit of air hitting your palm when you say them, if you want to try. So these letters or these sounds would be g, k, p, b, t, d. Okay, it's very soft, the air that you'll feel come out for some of them, so you might have to put your hand even closer. But in these cases, you are not going to hear when we have combinations of two stopped sounds together. You're not going to hear people exaggerate both of the sounds, but rather they're going to hold the first sound back and then fully pronounce the second one. For example, in It's a Big Ball, where I say big ball, if I fully pronounce that g and get it all the way out, then it's hard to transition to another b, where I also have to push out air and stop the air. So to make this easier, big ball, we sort of eat up the G. We don't have to say big. We start to make the G sound big, big, but we don't fully let the air out, which is why it's called a stopped sound here. So big, big ball, big ball. Not big ball, but big ball, big ball. And I sort of eat up that first sound. I swallow it. Same if we have other combinations. It's break time. It's break time. Not break time, but break time. Break time. So when you hear other speakers sound like they're swallowing their sounds, in this case they are, because it makes the transition into the next sound much easier and effortless. 10 job candidates. 10 job candidates. So not job candidates, but job candidates. Job. So my lips come together for the B, job, but I don't fully push out the air. Job candidates. Job candidates. Okay, 10 job candidates. So that's another one to listen for when people are speaking. Next, this is a fun one because it makes things easier to pronounce as well. So when we have the final T or D sound at the end of a word and it comes in between other consonants, we actually don't have to pronounce that sound. So for example, if I hear kept singing, this T is in between two consonants. The P comes before and the S comes after. And we know that because of connected speech, we don't say kept singing and have separation, but they all flow together. So we have a consonant sound before and a consonant sound after. So instead of saying he kept singing and fully pronounce that, here for understanding, for listening purposes, we don't need to hear the T or D sound for the word to make sense and be clear. So we don't pronounce it. So you won't hear people fully expressing or fully saying, enunciating all of the sounds in these words because it's not necessary for listening. He kept singing turns into he kept singing. He kept singing. Okay, so you just won't even hear the T. Same with if we have a D in between two consonants, like in stand back. You won't hear the D, you'll just hear please stand back. Please stand back, stand back, stand back. She looked forward to it. She looked forward to it. Will sound like she looked forward, forward to it, forward, forward to it, forward to it. So you never actually hear me put that d, forward to, no, forward to, forward to. Okay, so that's another really great thing to be aware of when you are listening to people speak, because sometimes a sound will just disappear. And that's because it's not necessary for understanding what the word is. Now, a really special rule for listening. This is a sound that we call the flap T. So in the American accent, when we see a T come in between two vowels, it actually sounds like a soft D, D sound. D, D. So this happens in single words all the time. You'll notice a lot of words, like in the word butter, butter, butter. And here we see two T's written, but it just makes one sound, right? We don't say twice, just makes one sound. So butter or letter, or other words like reality instead of reality, possibility instead of possibility. So we make this tiny d, d, d sound. Butter, letter, reality, possibility. And because of connected speech, this also happens when we are putting words together, when we are forming utterances and sentences, okay? So for example, if I have these two words together, get out, because this T is in between two vowel sounds, it'll actually sound like a D, and the words will connect together. Get out, get out, get out of here, get out of here. Or in what are you doing? This what and are will sound like water, 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 what are you doing? What are you doing? Or set off will sound like said, set off, set off. He set off yesterday. Set off, set off. So you will hear people transform this T sound in connected speech in different ways. And the flap T is one of the main ways that that happens. Okay, there are other rules that exist for the T in connected speech, but don't worry about that. This one is the main rule that is important for listening purposes. Okay, so pay attention to when these anticipated T sounds actually end up sounding like Ds when you hear people pronounce them out loud. So now for some challenge practice exercises of things that you can do to be moving forward, working on your connected speech. So this is to keep practicing your skills at identifying connected speech. First of all, like I have encouraged you to do throughout this video, I would like you to identify which aspects of connected speech are new to you or feel challenging when you hear them. It feels challenging to understand why it sounds like that. So identify which parts, okay? And those are the ones that you're going to focus on. Then find a video or an audio or a song that comes with transcript or lyrics so that you can see what people are saying. I personally recommend TED Talks as a great resource for this because you can always find the transcript online for TED Talks. And when you have the video or audio with the transcript, I would like you to find examples of connected speech or reductions within the video that you are using so that you can get more comfortable to listening and looking out for those aspects of connected speech. And it's much easier to practice when we also know what people are saying. And then practice yourself saying those smaller units of words where we're connecting things together. Say them without taking any breaks or pauses in between so that you can practice in your own speech, finding that flow and that connection without losing time breaking up every single word, because that will actually be harder for other speakers to understand. Okay, so these are some steps that you can follow to be practicing your connected speech skills on your own. And that's all for this video. And I'd like you to know that oftentimes in English, we have the phrase where we say practice makes perfect. But what is perfect anyways? Perfection is a very unrealistic goal, even in our native languages. So I like to say practice makes better here, okay? Practice makes better. And every time you intentionally listen for different aspects of connected speech or reductions or the schwa, whatever it is, you are training your brain to listen and understand much faster any aspect of connected speech that you hear. So even if you're spending 5 minutes thinking, okay, I'm going to focus and concentrate really hard on my listening skills to pick up on connected speech, doing that 5 minutes a day for a couple of months, that's a lot of training that you did for your brain to start to listen to things effortlessly without even having to worry about paying attention really to what you're listening to. And that's a great feeling to finally achieve in your non-native language. All right, that's all for this video. These are some really advanced aspects of speech. So congratulations on getting through this. Feel free to watch it back and look at any parts that were more difficult or challenging for you. And I will see you in the next video.